About 15 years ago, I went off and did my master's degree in disaster medicine, and I met a man, a Syrian-born Romanian intensivist of Palestinian origin. He worked as a volunteer in emergency departments from the age of 14. This is a gentleman who's inspired me, and he's a gentleman that's inspired me to set up West Cork Rapid Response. This vehicle that he got there, he sold his own car to get a second-hand response vehicle from a country neighboring Romania. With a little bit of extra money he made from selling his own car, he bought a second-hand defibrillator. And so SMURD was born. And he encouraged others around him to do the same, to pick up their game. Time, folks. It's a lot of time and dedication when you dedicate your entire life to sorting out a system that was frankly broken, that didn't exist, and putting in place a system of pre-hospital care that you can stand behind and be proud of, not accepting what is there. He invited people over, and certainly my boss, Professor Kuzak, went over as a young physician, and in this session they helped developed the first emergency department in Turcomoros. They actually took a prefabricated emergency department that was temporarily the home of Dunfermline Hospital emergency department and shipped it over to Romania in 10 days. Started staffing it, started training people. And so where do you go from here? Where do you go from these humble beginnings, 1993? So over 25 years, he moved on. It was a thorn in the side of the government that developed SMURD as a national system around Romania. It was slow to begin with. For a while, he was actually the Minister of Health in Romania, serving many years as the Undersecretary of State for Health in the Romanian government, developing an absolutely outstanding telemedical system that went out and retrieved the sickest of the sick from outlying, impoverished areas of Romania, bringing them back centrally. However, as you can imagine, it wasn't all plain sailing. You see, in Romania, just like other places around the east of Europe, private companies tried to get in and take away that cash cow that was healthcare. And he resisted this. He resisted this so much that the president sacked him. And what happened? The people of Romania came out in the streets in solidarity with their emergency service, SMURD. Here's a humble emergency medicine physician, Palestinian origin, born in Syria, who the people of Romania came out in the street in protest and literally put down that motion the president was on. And what did he come? And when you've got that support of the people of your country, it grows and grows and grows. And he became the Minister for the Interior. Sorry, he probably explains me. He became the Secretary of State for the Ministry of the Interior, a new setup in Romania. Romania is one of the only countries in Europe where there's an actual right to emergency care. You cannot charge somebody in Romania to come and rescue them or provide emergency care in their time of need. People, I give you my friend, my mentor, Raed Arafat.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jason, and thank you all. In fact, I didn't know what I'm going to speak about. So now he did the introduction, And what I'm going to show you is that we need to have systems, and we need to work not only from the bottom up, but also from the top down. We need to create functional systems that deal with our daily emergencies, but as well with our disasters and mass casualties and disaster response. And here what you will see, I'm not going to go through all this, but I'm going to show you where we are now, because if I would go on the whole story, it will go for hours. Now we have a department called the Department for Emergency Situations. In it, there is a General Directorate for Emergency Medical Care, which is responsible for the coordination of pre-hospital and emergency departments all over Romania. Together with that, under the department, we are responsible for the fire service, as well as for the air rescue. And you see the SMURD, which is joint between the fire service and the emergency departments. And of course, the mountain rescue is included. So it's a big organization which started functioning in 2014 at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I worked for 7 years in the Ministry of Health, starting as Undersecretary of State, accepted to be minister for 3 months, which is something I refuse completely, and that was an exception, and then moved to the Ministry of Internal Affairs and started developing this department coordinating the whole emergency response in Romania, including civil protection. This is our national monitoring system and coordination service in the Ministry of Interior, where we follow up all major incidents happening in Romania. We follow up fires, we follow up mass casualty incidents, we follow up critical transfers, and we support counties with resources that we bring them from the national level. So, 2 incidents that I will show you where the system is now and what we can deal with. This was in Montenegro, 2013. A Romanian bus full with tourists fell over a cliff. This is exactly how the accident happened. The Montenegrin authorities did a marvelous job. They rescued people, they took them to the hospital. There was no single person that was lightly injured. There were about 19 dead and 29 injured. All of them, 12 at least, in very critical condition, and all of them needing surgery, orthopedics, and so on. So 19 killed and 28 injured. And this is where the media started talking about it. It was a Sunday, I got the call from the Prime Minister, and a military aeroplane was sent where I was, and I went to Montenegro to see what we can do. And that was a good thing, because I could meet the Minister of Health, go and visit all the patients. My training is anesthesia and critical care, my basic training, but worked all my life in emergency medicine. And the decision I took, Montenegro, if you know, it's a small country, it's about 600,000 people, 1 major hospital. So that hospital was blocked with our patients. So they did a good job, but we needed to move the patients. And the decision was move everybody to Romania. So I requested 2 more airplanes, which one of them was fitted as an intensive care airplane for 12 patients and the other for the rest of them. And this is a major operation. This here you see taking patients in the CJ-27. These were patients which some of them had chest tubes, some of them needed intubation, ventilation. And the team, the airplanes are military, the team is a civilian team from the SMURD, which is coming from our helicopter service, from our pre-hospital service. And here you can see the very good juncture we have. We can obtain a military airplane in Romania in 2 hours from the time we call it, even in the middle of the night. And we can put a team on it and leave within the country to retrieve patients if we have more than 1 patient and we don't want to use the single patient helicopter or the single patient airplane. So this is in Romania. local areas, not only municipalities. The whole country has to be prepared. So this is what you can see here, which is an excellent cooperation between a lot of structures that we are working together. So I will go further to another incident which we had in 2015, a huge club fire, which we had, and some of you maybe have heard about this. End of 2015, there was an unauthorized club, 400 people inside, and they used fireworks inside, which are external grade fireworks. They shouldn't have been used inside. In Romania, the legislation doesn't allow indoor fireworks use. The club was all with urethane, so it went on fire. The main emergency exit was chained, only one exit through a container which was put outside. You will see it in a picture. People panicked, major emergency, major response. The total, you will see the total of the patients. So this is what happened there. I will put this so that you can understand what happened exactly. This is the scene. That is the closed door, which should have been the emergency exit. This is where the container is in. You have the door which opens outside the container, but the door inside opens inside. So people, when they wanted to run away, they were pushing the door against. They couldn't open it easily, and this is how the fire spread. So the call came in the night. It was Friday night. I'm not going to stop a lot here. The first call, it gave us an address which the gate was closed. It was an old factory. They had to go around and go within this small area within and to start the rescue work. And we had 27 dead on the scene, 26 in fact, and 1 in the ambulance, which we think he was dead before arrival to the hospital. And then we had 88 intubated patients, total of 155 burns patients admitted to hospitals in Bucharest. This is the container outside I'm telling you about. And here you can see the firefighters. The fire was put off in 6 minutes since they arrived. So it was all a rescue operation and evacuation operation from within, and a lot of medical work. Here you can see the emergency ambulances from the fire department, the large ambulances that I told you we use in these conditions, the National Ambulance Service, which is also under the coordination of our department. So the total of what we moved there, I will go here. We used 51 type V ambulances, 10 type C ambulances. We used 3 multi-victim patient transport. We used 2 mobile emergency rooms, as we call them. They have a lot of logistics and so on, and 1 mobile command center on the scene. The last patient was taken out at 00:20 minutes, which is about less than 2 hours from the beginning of the fire. Now, the first decision we took, not to take the patients to the burn centers, but to distribute them to all the emergency departments in Bucharest. And that was a good decision. And I think this is why we didn't have immediate deaths in the hospitals. If they would have been all taken to 2 or 3 hospitals, it would have been overwhelming. But some patients took private cars and left, as it happens every time. And this is the main emergency room where most of them went. And you can see 57 patients came here. And the people who are dressed in red, they were ready to go out to assist on the scene, but some of them were retained to deal with the disaster which moved to their hospital. So the next step was to move patients from that hospital to other hospitals, which we did it during that night. But then came a major issue. The impact on the staff. This girl who worked on the call center in our department, she could recite the names of all patients she was asked about during that night. The next step was to move patients to other countries. This is where we faced a lot of discussions, a lot of issues. Who's going to pay? Procedures. Who's going to pick up the patients from our airplanes when we get to the other countries? Some countries have teams with doctors, others have teams with EMTs, others have teams with paramedics. We had very critical patients that had to be moved. So we started moving patients using our own SMURD airplanes. There are two. This Citation 5, it's a one-patient airplane. Then there is the Piper. That was a continuous work once we obtained the approvals from those hospitals to move patients to them. And you will see during the night we are doing the same things. So we moved patients to Austria, to Germany, to Belgium, to the Netherlands, to the UK, to Norway. Yeah, this is during the night, and you will see another aeroplane which I want you to see it. This one, this was bought by donations from the population. We did a donation, we did money collection, and we gave it to the Ministry of Interior to run it for free for the transfers, for the medevacs, which we use them in the country. The other aeroplane, the Citation, was donated to us by, you know, maybe the multimillionaire tennis player, Tsiriak. So he's the one who donated it. But we also used the military. And the first place where we went to was the military hospital in Brussels, Queen Astrid's Hospital. And you can see here, taking the patients here, we had 8 patients, 3 intubated, 5 non-intubated, as this is the place they had for them. And the second aeroplane left to the Netherlands with 9 patients. We were pressed to take patients we didn't want to take, which were really on the edge. And it was maybe for the first time we did this, we lost 2 patients from those who we were taking to the Netherlands. But the pressure was very high, so we were telling everyone, we go, but this patient may not make it. And we really had these issues. The media was on a very high pressure on us. And at a certain moment, you can see another thing which we did. This is a NATO airplane. This is a C-17. When we discussed to move patients to the UK, to Norway, our chief of staff in the military, he phoned me and he said, this is 6 hours flight. Yes, it's too much. So, can I try to find you a solution? Yes, and he called and he brought from what we call it the Papa base, which is based in Hungary, a C-17 airplane with a crew from the US, from Norway, from Hungary, and we put on it the medical team from our side, 8 physicians, 9 nurses, and we moved 10 patients, 7 of them intubated and very, very critical. And we moved them to the UK and to Norway. Each country arranged, in a way, the reception of the patients from us. The UK, they brought medical teams from the hospitals that were taking the patients, and each team took their patient and left with their ambulances. These are some of our colleagues which had some testimonies on what they have seen to convince the press that we have done our best. This is how we moved patients. The yellow ones are 3 patients which were moved privately to Israel and to Germany, but the rest of the patients were all moved by our resources. The total death toll within the next few months, it arrived to 64 deaths. The 27 plus the difference up to 64. But the mortality was due a lot to the combined injuries, lung injuries, not only burns and so on. And this is where I want to show you in the last minute on what we face as emergency services. We face, it's not always people praising us. We face attacks. We face disinformation. Someone came and said that we got there too late, which was not true. We were there in 11 minutes, and then the majority of the vehicles arrived within the next 40 minutes and so on to get up to 64 vehicles, just medical vehicles, not fire engines and so on, which were more. But then they came and they said the government is hiding bodies. and that we are lying to the population and that the death toll is much larger to create more political issues from here. And the people who did this were, in fact, here they are saying, they were put in bags and hidden. This disaster, with all this response you have seen, led to the fall of the government and to people not believing that we were doing our best. It's just now that we are able to start speaking about what we have done and convincing people that what we have done was right and was the most that we could have done at that time. And debates. This is a lady from an NGO which opened a huge attack on us from the second day. And she's here asking me, why didn't you put all patients in aeroplanes and left with them to Europe? And you can imagine this is impossible. And we were telling her, you cannot transfer patients without permission and without having place for them, especially burns patients and so on. So these were the debates, and I accepted to go to such debates just to be able to explain. And the attacks continued for months on persons, on our services, and they were trying to diminish the role of the service and so on. And this created a huge reaction from the population to support us again, other than the one which Jason told you. And after that, when they did polls after few months of attack against the emergency system and so on, they found that they didn't move the confidence of the population, not even by 1%. It remained 88 to 90%. So this is what I wanted to show you, in fact, the forces that we can deploy, all what we can do, the fact that we prepared the country. We are not a perfect system. There is still a lot to do. But from the 1990, where we had nothing, to now, where we are running 9 helicopter bases, thousands of flight hours, fixed wing, ambulances, the fire department became involved when it was never involved before. All this made a change, and it was all a teamwork, because I had a lot of people working and supporting me and working with me. So I stop here. Thank you.
Go.
Thank you, Raed.
Thank you.
All right, up we go.
Thanks. See the questions now.
So I'm sure Mike Abernathy has something to say about completely free aeromedical evacuations.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, coming from a place where our EMS in HEMS is so fragmented, it's just amazing, sort of the unified effort of such a large number of people. Now, the SMURD assistants, the red suits and SMURD assistants, what is the level of their training?
Well, we have 3 levels there. We have the EMTs, which are firefighters. We have the mobile intensive care units, which have 2 firefighters, EMTs, 1 nurse, and 1 physician coming from the emergency department. So the physician is an emergency physician with 5 years training. We start using them when they are in their 3rd years of residence, 3rd to 4th. We can use them to do shifts. We are allowed to do that. And then the helicopters, where we have the pilots coming from the Ministry of Interior and the doctor and the nurse coming from the hospital, from the emergency department. We have also some anesthesiologists who do shifts there. So this is the level. The National Ambulance Service, it has nurses and it has ambulances with ambulance crew and nurse, or with a physician, but usually they are GPs which have a 6-month training in pre-hospital emergency care, which is thus done by us in the emergency departments. So we can say we have a 3-tier system from this point of view.
Now, do you rely on volunteers for surge capacity?
We have volunteers in the system. We use volunteers starting from medical students, but we are also now recruiting lay people as volunteers because the EMT crews, they must have 3 in the car. So one will in the future be a volunteer. In this way, we will expand the number of the vehicles because we need to increase the number of the vehicles.
Thank you very much, Raed.
You're welcome.
Thank you.